not to interrupt me during meetings. To be well behaved when Mama says I have a call and to stay out of my room is how I want to raise my kids. I'm clearly failing at that. We want to raise them with the same kind of entrepreneurial values that we have. Our kids love to be in the kitchen. I think not only entrepreneurial values, but family values, just like what we had. We were always often together in the kitchen. My son, Eve, who's here with me, he loves to cook. We started a
How
whole
old is he?
online series. He's 4. We started an online series of him doing all of the recipes throughout the cookbook. So he's cooked all of the recipes that we've videoed. So really kind of, keeping those values of togetherness, being around the table. It's something that's very important in our household with all of our meals. And for me, I really instill a lot of creativity in him. That was something that my parents very much supported. Both of them being, my mom was a stay-at-home mom. My father was an entrepreneur. And I want to, not give them the path that some parents do, forcing them to be doctors or be lawyers and forcing them to be, very academic. I want him to be able to try as many things as possible and really, see what speaks to him and be open to what he wants to do.
Elisa, thank you so much for taking the time, and especially early in the morning. You are one of the first people on our podcast that are focused on retail and primarily coffee and cafe. So we are super excited to have you on. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here with you.
Elisa, tell us a bit about your journey from Canada and then to New York and now in Miami. How did you get here?
Yeah, most definitely. So it's a long story, but to give you the short and condensed version, I grew up in Toronto, suburbs of Toronto, between there and Montreal. Met my husband in Montreal. He was from France originally and was studying and working in Montreal. So we met there. And on our second date, we both had a conversation about what we wanted to do. And I remember saying I wanted to open a bakery and a cafe. And he said, I want to open a restaurant. And here we are actually relationship wise, like 13 years later, Maman wise, about 10 years later this year. So started with a little dream and a little conversation on a date, which then transpired into us actually kind of both quitting our jobs and jumping into the hospitality industry. So we had friends who were opening up a beach club restaurant in Ibiza in Spain and asked us to join on with them. And I was a wedding planner and working in fashion PR and marketing based in Toronto and Montreal. And my husband was a corporate lawyer, and we both kind of saw this opportunity and just wanted something new, something fun and a challenge, and to kind of, take a few more steps towards our dream and learn a little bit more about the hospitality industry. So we both kind of like jumped into that opportunity and ended up leaving everything behind, packing our bags and moving to Spain for 2 years. So we basically lived there. We opened and ran a restaurant on the beach, which was an incredible experience. It was like hospitality school 101 because we had, you don't have the same kind of amenities as you do have, if you're opening in New York. We didn't have power most of the time. I didn't speak any of the language. So there were a lot of struggles and challenges and a lot of great learning experiences. And then from there, it kind of transpired to us going to New York. So with the same hospitality group, they invited us to come in the off seasons to look after their restaurants in New York, which we did. And from there, just really fell in love with the city and had a dream and a passion of Maman ultimately, which is, came to life back 10 years ago this year, October 4th, 2014.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. And from there, I'm sure we'll talk more about the details in between, but we're very fortunate. Yesterday, we just opened up our 37th location in West Palm Beach.
Right.
So from from, the one tiny little cafe, which was supposed to always just be one tiny little cafe passion project, just turned into something so much more. And as you mentioned, now we're in Miami. We've expanded the brand itself from starting in New York to DC to Toronto to Montreal, now Miami.
You are working with your husband as a co-founder. For young girls, do you recommend, going on a date and then discussing what you want to do for the future? Because, you may end up picking your husband right there.
That's true. Exactly. It can be pretty risky. I think going into business is almost like, exchanging rings and signing a contract very early on. But, I think we were very fortunate. We both had the same vision. We both had the same goals in terms of what we wanted to do. And I think we also both had the same drive and the same spirit, because I think not having that entrepreneurial kind of like bug planted in you, it can be a challenge for people who work together. We were both very much in line. And in addition to that, where we weren't in line was our skill set. So to our advantage, everything that he is really good at, which is so many things, from accounting to, more of the business side, the numbers, the legal side of things, is everything that I'm bad at. So It was a really nice balance in the standpoint that there also were not elements where we were kind of butting heads. And, when we started the business, we both had, our specific hats to wear, and we both kind of like took our distinct roles based on our strengths, which was a huge advantage for us, because I think that prevented, a lot of conflicts in people working together in a relationship where, there's too many opinions and people are trying to do too many of the same thing. We both kind of had our different paths and went with those.
Like, for the audience who has not been to one of the Maman cafes, would you tell us, what does Maman do and how big is the chain? You said that you've just opened your 37th cafe. So how would you compare yourself with a Blue Bottle Coffee or an LPQ? If I'm a customer, if I want to have coffee or, your croissant or something like that, how do you figure out that I have to go to Maman versus others?
For sure. So, first of all, Maman means mother in French, which not a lot of people know. We actually named it in tribute to our mothers. And when we were trying to come up with the name, with the brand, we mentioned our mom's name so many times during the process. So, both of us were very fortunate to have, very supportive families, fantastic moms who were huge influences for us from a culinary standpoint. And we both had entrepreneurial fathers as well. So I think that we were both in line there and had the best of both worlds. So, in New York, when we were in New York, we really felt that there wasn't anything that was warm and comfortable. And this was, 10 years back, where everything was very cool, industrial chic. And we wanted to go somewhere that really felt like home, because I feel like New York City is not a home for so many people. And especially when you're in a cafe vibe, when you're gathering with friends and family around the table, you want something warm and cozy and there to be nostalgic, of amazing childhood memories. And we just felt that was a gap in the market, and that was missing, combined with good food. So kind of summarizing, what we are, I think we're a cafe, we're a bakery. We're also, an event space and a catering company. For me, my goal is really to kind of create that home away from home atmosphere, and is also why we called it Maman, because I think that for many people is the center, and something that is very reminiscent of home, and relatable to so many people, especially when it comes to eating and being in the kitchen and being around the dining room table. People either say their mom was the best cook or their mom was the worst cook. So for us, in terms of comparisons, it's really difficult. I don't think that there is much out there that is direct competition to what we're doing. From a coffee standpoint, you mentioned Blue Bottle. There's tons of great coffee shops within the city that are like competitors to us. I think from a bakery standpoint, we can say the same thing. And then savory, we have tons of great savory food, everything from sandwiches to salads to soups. Beautiful, dishes, toasts, tartines, full lunch, full brunch menu. So I feel like we kind of tap into a variety of different categories, in addition to being an event space, that there is not really direct competition. There's kind of competition in the various segments that we have. But I think, for us, it's kind of really creating that warm, welcoming environment. and being more than just great food in New York.
What did your customer discovery process look like?
For sure. So the idea was something that was always like implanted in our mind, the cafe
Yeah.
concept, the bakery, the coffee shop, the event space, that was always kind of there. So I think definitely as we did come to the US, we were able to do a lot of competition research, really understand the market, really understand the demographic, the neighborhood in which we were opening in, which was Soho, which to be honest was very competitive. There's like New York City, I can name you 5 amazing places for great food and great coffee within a 2-block radius of any of our locations. And, I think in New York, you either see competition as a challenge or you see it as, how can I be different? So for us, it was really kind of taking a look at what else was around us and realizing too that customers want more than just good food and good coffee because we're in a city that is surrounded and we're bombarded with amazing food and amazing coffee in a place like New York. So for us, it was really how can we be more and why are customers going to come to us as opposed to going across the street for a good cup of coffee? So for us from a brand and doing something unique and really to stand out and be competitive in the marketplace, it was kind of looking at all of those little details. So it was everything from the space, the environment, the cups, the plates that we use, the branding that we use, the customer service, really kind of creating that warm ambiance that made you feel like you were in a local coffee shop or that made you not feel like you were in New York City and you were drinking out of a China cup that your grandmother used to have that was reminiscent of one of the patterns that she had in her home because all of our flatware that we use and all of our serviceware is all mismatched vintage blue and white items. So for me, it was, and I think that stems from my wedding planning and event planning background as well, is that attention to detail, which when we started was kind of a little bit too neurotic. And, I think a lot of people were frustrated and didn't take it seriously. And it was really even pre-Instagram era when I wanted to make sure that everything was beautiful and everything was a photographable moment. And if you're serving a cup and a saucer in a cup of coffee, you're using purposely mismatched china to make that a beautiful presentation for the customer. And then we were very fortunate that Instagram really caught on a few years later. And then that kind of snowballed into becoming, we were named kind of one of the most Instagram cafes in New York City just because of the attention to detail and the aesthetic and the beauty that I wanted to bring to the everyday dining experience.
That's pretty solid. So you came to New York and you did all this customer discovery. How long did it take you? Because, you were a foreigner. And then for someone who wants to come to New York and start up, so what is the level of patience that that person should have, right? And when do you know that this is the right time to start or maybe the right time to stop and go back? How did you take that call?
Whether there was a right time or not to start, I think you just got to take chances. And that's something that I really learned along the way is, nothing is ever going to align perfectly. The stars are never going to all align for you and be like, okay, this is my right time to start the business. I feel like for us, it was taking risks. And that's really what entrepreneurship is all about is taking a risk because nothing is ever going to align up perfectly for you. And you're not going to find the perfect space and have all the perfect research. And if you're waiting for that and waiting for perfection, it's not going to happen. So taking risks and being comfortable with taking risks, I think was one of the biggest challenges. And, fortunately we knew the city. We traveled quite a bit to New York. We were probably there for a good, I'd say living there on and off because we were in Spain and we would come to New York for the summer. So for the winter months. So we were living there maybe for in total 12 months, I would say almost about a year prior to really taking the plunge into Maman and understanding the culture, understanding the demographic, and understanding the needs of the customer. And what's really been interesting for us too is how much it varies and how much it really differs when we go market to market, but even when we go neighborhood to neighborhood, like when we opened up our Soho location, the demographic and offering there in comparison to what we do in our Tribeca location was very, very different because the customers are completely different. So I think it really takes a lot of understanding to really educate yourself on who your customer is going to be and making sure that you're catering directly to them. And, that was definitely a few month process. And then, finding the right space. We were very fortunate. It happened quickly. The space that we found, the lease was up for renewal the following month. So, whereas in some cases, people can spend years shopping around for the perfect place. So, as much as, as much as, there was a lot of luck in our favor, I think, we did take risks because, we weren't waiting for the perfect space. And I could tell you our Soho space, especially seeing it now after, the many that we've built, it is far, far from perfect.
Right.
But you got to start somewhere, and you just got to take that plunge and jump into the deep end to really kind of kickstart the business and get yourself going.
Absolutely. So you're in the retail space, right? And so retail is traditionally known as the hardest to scale. How did you do it? What are the factors that you looked into to make sure that you do scale?
Yeah, I think it was definitely a challenge. I think it was really a challenge more so personally than professionally, because I think when looking at our first location that we opened in Soho, it was such a labor of love, and it was such a passion project. And we had our family coming in and painting the walls and hand sanding every single vintage chair so that the patina was perfectly, off from one another. And I never envisioned having more than one, let alone 37.
Yeah.
And I think that was a very scary jump in terms of going to scale, and more so for the brand itself. For me, it was, how do I recreate and cookie cutter something that to me is so unique and so soulful and so original. And there's not one tile we use, there's not one table, there's not one reference for chairs. Everything has so much. I speak about design, but also can say the same from a culinary standpoint. Everything has so much attention to detail that goes into it. And I think we've been very fortunate that has really been, a tribute to our success. And when scaling retail, it was definitely scary. We went from 1 to 6 on our own, bootstrapping, reinvesting everything that we had into it until right prior to COVID, we were actually able to raise money from a private equity firm.
Right.
And that was, I think, the biggest turn in the brand, in the business, because they really saw that it had a lot more legs to, be a national brand and to not just be, primarily based in New York, and that there were opportunities in other markets in New York as well to expand and to open up. So for us, during COVID is actually when we were able to raise money. And we were very fortunate that a lot of restaurants closed down during that time. Le Pain Quotidien, which you discussed, a lot of independent coffee shops. So we were in a position where we were right at the start of expanding our brand. And there were so many opportunities that were to be had within New York City. So many restaurants just literally closed their doors and handed over their keys back to the landlords. Landlords were scared, offering great deals because no one knew what was happening. And my husband was very opportunistic at the time and ended up signing about 14 leases. And we got some amazing spaces, second generation spaces as well, which was ideal because it is much cheaper basically to open a new restaurant. We're not starting from scratch in a lot of cases. For some of the existing Le Pain Quotidien locations, the coffee equipment was there, the refrigeration was there, the ovens were there, because ultimately we're in the same business.
Sure.
So that was, really kind of how we went from, our 6 smaller stores to scaling to something, so much bigger.
An interesting point that you just talked about is, just working with this private equity firm. So were you already on the lookout for an investment, or, for someone who's just like starting a restaurant business or something else, like, right, maybe a fashion store? Should they proactively reach out, or do PEs reach out to them, or when is even the right time, How did you know that from 6 now you got a raise?
For us, I think it was really all about proving that the concept works. And
Right.
especially in a city like New York, I think having one location and one store, it could be a fluke. It could be a great area. It could be high trafficked. It could be
Yeah.
just really perfect for that specific neighborhood. And I think anyone coming in from an investment standpoint wants to see scalability and wants to see growth. And I think a lot of people can say that New York is a very difficult city to open up in, which is true. It definitely has its challenges and hurdles, but then at the same time, it's also a great city because it just has, for retail, there's so much traffic. There's an abundance of people at all times. You have tourism, you have businesses. It's the city that never sleeps, and opportunities are literally at your doorstep on a daily basis. So for us, it was proving that we could be more than one location and that we could grow the business. So that's why we really looked, I think probably at about our fourth or fifth location, once we really understood what we were doing, once we understood the model, and once we understood that we could scale this into more, which was by opening a commissary kitchen. At that point was when we're like, okay, what are we doing? Are we going to sit and continue on with our business as is, or are we going to go big and really
Yeah.
take it somewhere else? So, having two businesses for us we were not in the position to be like, let's raise money, because, we knew we would be, have the door slammed in our face by so many, because, firstly, it just could be like a one-off success.
Yeah.
Like, we needed to prove the concept. And I advise that to many others too, is prove the concept in ecom, prove the concept in multiple locations before, going to investors and wanting to grow, to say, listen, I've done my research, I've done my homework, I've done my data. This not only works here, it works here, here, and here, and there's growth potential for more.
Yeah. How do you pick the right private equity partner?
That's a great question. And that was a difficult strategy for us. And I think it was really understanding what our needs were. And I think in some cases, not only is it just money, but I think it's also expertise too. And I think, it definitely in bringing on private equity, it comes with funds and money, which is the main point of it, and which is what we needed. But then there's also, people behind that as well. So I think it was really looking at their portfolio, looking at what they've done, how they've scaled the business. And, we at that time wanted, someone who could come in and assist us where we needed assistance. I think it was from growth. It was guidance on growing our corporate structure. It was guidance on bringing in some more people, because, as you get money, you need to, build a bigger team, invest in people to kind of help you grow. So it was, how do we find that people? Who are those people? So it was really kind of helping us go from a little literal mom and pop shop into something a little bit bigger. And, we looked at different firms that had different brands underneath their portfolio. And we wanted to kind of see ones that have gone from smaller shops to bigger shops. So I think, maybe it's an element that you want to get into, ecom. And if someone has a business and wants to go more that route, looking for, a P firm, looking for investments where, it's not only about the money, it's also about the added services and the skill set that they can offer you, and the expertise. So really kind of seeing what the voids are in your company from a growth standpoint, and how they can help you as people in addition to funds.
I agree. And then how long does this process take, from concept thinking that, hey, I want private equity funds, to actually getting money in the bank?
It was a pretty lengthy process for us, because we had COVID that was, in between all of this, where, to be honest, we were, in conversations with quite a few, and then COVID hit. And I'm sure, that F&B business in New York it wasn't very admirable for so many, and to be putting their money and their funds into. So I think ours is a unique case. I don't know the exact standards, but, it was an interesting and fun process. And it really almost reminded me of like a Shark Tank episode, where you literally go and you pitch we kept pitching who we were and what we do. And here's our presentation, and here's, our data and our numbers, to various different firms, until you find one that, I think you mesh with as a person. They have the added benefits that you're looking for. And you just pray that COVID doesn't that doesn't happen again, or there's no other big worldly issue that can throw.
And while you were pitching your business idea, your business growth, etc., to these private equity firms, what are the like top 2 or 3 indicators that you always talked about, that you led with that, hey, this is what we've done?
Yeah, I think it's really growth potential and it really depends what type of firm it is and what they want to see. But for us, it was proof of concept that it works in other markets, that it would work in other neighborhoods, because anyone coming in to invest their money obviously wants to invest money on return. So for us, the emphasis was really on, we can turn this into a scalable brand that can go, across the world ultimately. So really kind of like seeing that big picture. And for us, it was finding partners to really help us develop that, and putting the emphasis on, becoming the next Starbucks, and having not Starbucks per se. I'm not ever going to open up in malls and on every corner in every town in America, but in the books, we want to be a Starbucks, but in charm,
Yeah.
we still have, the vibe of that neighborhood coffee shop. So I think it was really growth potential was
Right.
our main leading point.
Right. And when you say growth, is this revenue growth? Is it profit growth? And,
Oh,
what are the numbers? Okay.
it was a combination of everything.
Okay.
I think it was everything from like revenue growth, showing like great P&L statements, projected numbers of what we were going to do, and then, city projections and potentials.
Right. And what is a good industry standard for a retail company from in terms of like revenue year-on-year growth? What is a number that I would be excited to look at from a
I think that's can be so specific. I don't think there's anything like generic in that
yeah,
standpoint, because
yeah,
retail,
yeah.
I think it's very dependent on the business model. I don't think that there's one, like pinpoint in that standpoint. Really dependent on the business, whether it be e-com, whether it be brick and mortar. So many factors can kind of play into that.
Right. And so, you've run your business for the past 10 years now. And I think specifically from the standpoint of an entrepreneur, right? Trying to target this customer, which, this customer goes to a coffee shop, goes to, I don't know, like buy clothes for herself or himself. I'm sure like you did your TG profiling, your target group profiling as well. How has the customer really changed, US customer really changed in the past 10 years? And maybe, we could focus on New York customer if that was your primary TG to begin with, because I do believe that they are different across different states. But what have
Yeah.
you observed about the customer, and where should the entrepreneur really focus his or her time, efforts, and money?
That's a great question. And I question whether the customer has changed or whether we have changed to adapt to the customer, which
Right.
you made me question myself on that one.
Yeah.
I think, in speaking to adaptability, for us, yes, we do have our blanket customer profile. But I found, especially in a city like New York, and as we scaled and as we grew, our customer demographic changed based on locations. So as I mentioned prior, if you look at somewhere like our Monahan Station location, which is a great performing store, there, we had to be more to-go conducive. People didn't want to sit and eat. We had to really put emphasis on speed. Our customer was very diverse there. It wasn't our target female 25 to 40, like young mom customer. It's your everyday consumer. And I think as you grow, you also have to expand your customer profile and really adapt your brand to be compatible with that specific customer. It's like we had male customers coming in, we had children coming. It was, a lot of like workers, a lot of commuters. So it was really creating adaptability within our brand to be conducive to that customer in that neighborhood. Of course, our brand in general still has its main focus and target. But if we look at a place like Tribeca, Saturdays and Sundays are most popular. It's the moms who will go to yoga class and get together after and have brunch and a glass of rosé. And, and avocado toast with their girlfriends, and want to eat very healthy and sit down and enjoy. Whereas our Monahan customer is the guy in the suit who's commuting from Connecticut to Wall Street and wants his coffee and his ham and cheese croissant to go.
Right.
So we had to kind of take our blinders off of being so focused on our demographic as we grew the brand, and thinking, how can we adapt our brand to be more conducive to the customer in that specific neighborhood?
Very exciting. And how has the branding changed? Have you made any branding revamps to the strategy, or what does that look like over the past 10 years?
That's one thing that's like my baby that I have not really had too much editing with, to be honest.
Right.
It's the brand, we built it to really have more legs to grow. And I knew that from the beginning. We kind of set out to build a brand that was not confined to being just a brick and mortar cafe and restaurant. We have had a lot of fun expanding the brand into everything from, tabletop to home collection to, children's wear, which we just launched, having fun doing a variety of collaborations, candles, apparel, and Maman, having it mean mother is just so fun and so generic and so relatable, and people really love the brand. So it's one thing that really hasn't altered, where it can go, what other fun opportunities can come from Maman, Maison Maman, Marché Maman. So we still have more to come with it.
Absolutely. So in 2017, Oprah, named you as one of the favorite things, the Nutty Chocolate Chip Cookie, right? And many of the entrepreneurs, while they are launching a brand, right, they think about the early branding, strategies that can give them a disproportionate kick, right? So how should they really think about all of this? I don't know if Oprah's favorite things was organic, or did you like actually plan a strategy? How should we like use our time, day to day?
Yeah, most definitely. So one of the best investments in opening that we made specifically in New York early on was PR. And we worked with Krupa Consulting, which has been Rachel Krupa has been, our right hand from a PR perspective. And for us, that was probably one of the most valuable outsourced agencies or help that we had when we first opened, especially in a city like New York, where it is so competitive. It's, getting your name out there, getting your foot in the ground, and having people know who you are. So for me, that's very valuable. And, the Oprah's list and being put on that is a dream for any entrepreneur. And, that we are very fortunate that it happened organically.
Right.
We actually were doing a press event with another brand, and the editor from Oprah magazine came in, and she was at the event. Our PR agency gave us a whole list of, these are all the people who are coming. These are the ones who you should know. And so we know, who's who. And she tried one of our cookies and came over and said, this cookie is incredible. And is this something that you ship nationwide? And of course I knew who she was. And I said, oh yes, of course we ship nationwide. Mind you, I've never shipped a cookie a day in my life. And in my mind, I'm like, of course we ship, I'll hand deliver them to Oprah for you, no problem.
Yeah.
And she said, oh great, do you ship them in these boxes over there? And I said, yes, of course we ship them in those boxes. She said, oh, fabulous. She's like, because we need things that ship across the nation to be as part of Oprah's, favorite things. And she said, oh, how do you ship them? And I said, oh, we're just, still figuring out the details on that, but we definitely, yes, we ship them. She said, oh, great, that's wonderful. And should I'd love to get some samples of them. It's one of the best cookies I've had. I'd love to, have it be considered. And so quickly after, I run into the back room and I'm like, we got to figure out how to ship cookies immediately. I'm like, start the packaging, start this process. And so I think a lot of it was, long story short, like 8 boxes of cookies shipped later. So much back and forth, so much testing. We finally got the call that we made it onto Oprah's list, which was a huge kickstart to our company. And that was, a really great, you can't pay for that kind of promotion. But the lesson that I learned out of all of that Was not only fake it till you make it, but also just saying yes and being open to opportunities and not being scared to try new things. And I think being opportunistic and being like optimistic as well. And you can't do anything, will really kind of helped to open the door to opportunities like this. That might not have ever happened and really, made a huge impact on our business and the growth of our business.
Right. What are the top 2 or 3 indicators that you always go to, understand the health of branding, since you look at branding, right, at Maman? So how do you know that your branding is working? What are the indicators that you look at?
I would say the first indication for me actually started very early on. And it was an interesting, like, eye-opening experience for us when one of my employees came to us and she's like, I need a new apron and a hat. And I said, how come? And she said, a customer literally just bought them off of me. And I'm like, what? She's like, I hope you're not mad. I'm so sorry. She's like, I love the logo. I need this as a gift for my mom. Do you sell them? She's like, can I buy yours? How much do you want for it? And I was like, oh, okay. I'm like, well, I guess people really like it. And more people started, wanting to know if we sold our hats, wanting to know if we, I'm like, okay, we're on to something. So it really started off small and selling our aprons, selling our hats. I think having a name like Mama, that was relatable. It was a great gift for moms, especially being an apron and a hat. The design, the aesthetic of the logo, people really loved as well, just because it is, something a little bit abstract. And from there, I think that was the first indication that people really, were loving the brand. And the second one is kind of a funny and sad one, was the fact that everyone was stealing stuff. And it blew my mind that how much theft we had from a restaurant standpoint. I would source all over antique markets and I would be on eBay all the time, replacements and buying all the most beautiful
Yeah.
mismatched vintage blue and white china, and all of our cutlery was all vintage silverware. And I had these vases, these beautiful vases that we bought years ago at Anthropology when we first opened, these little
Oh, I
rabbits
love that.
that
It's
had
my favorite.
in the air. And we started off with 12, one on every table, and a week later I'm like, there's only like 8 of them left. And then 2 weeks later we're down to 2 of them, and the staff are like, we need more knives, we need more forks. I'm like, what are you guys doing with this stuff? Until I caught on that people really love everything that we have. And I'm like, so in hopes to prevent people from stealing things, which is just a bizarre concept of that I have of people actually going to the restaurants and thinking they're entitled to take home the centerpieces and the china and the forks and knives and salt and pepper shakers. Now I'm like, I gotta sell it. People want this stuff. So that's exactly kind of like what transpired into kind of us creating a lot of like the lifestyle collection items. So now we sell all of our tabletop. We sell the bunny vases after hot demand. We don't have them on the tables anymore, so no one can go in and steal them. You have But that was really kind of I was so upset, but I was so flattered that people loved everything and wanted to take it home. So it was just kind of, seeing that negative, turning it into a positive, and having it kind of launch a new division of our brand.
This is the funniest example ever.
Yeah. I'm like, that's how the retail collection started. That's how we know people like the brand.
Awesome. So many people come to New York every year with the dream of making it big. When you first came to New York, how were you feeling personally?
Didn't have the dream of making it big, had the dream of making it small. And I really kind of came, with the goal of opening up something small and cozy and quaint, because I felt like there was a lack of that in New York. Everything was big and lights and glitz, and I just wanted that cute little cozy tiny coffee shop. I think it's every, stereotypical girl's dream to have that coffee shop that sells flowers and baked goods and is really pretty and beautiful. And when we came, and still to this day, if you were to ask me a year ago, right now I'm in Miami, I'm living in Miami with my family, and if you were to ask me a year ago if I would be here today, I would have zero clue, zero idea. So I think for us it was just really a matter of being open to opportunities as they came along, and I think planning to an extent, but also being open to go with the flow and not being so narrow-minded and having your 5-year plan. And anyone asks me what my 5-year plan is, I refuse to answer, because a year ago, I couldn't have even told you my 1-year plan, and that we would have 5 stores in Miami right now, and I would be living here with, 2 children and my husband. So I think being open to opportunities and not being so focused on goals, because not goals, I should say, more so on plans, because they're always going to change. And, take opportunities when they come, try new things, be courageous, take risks, and who knows where that's going to lead and take you.
Absolutely. I think one thing that people don't often talk about is just the financial implications of moving to a new country. How did you sort of have the financial guarantee? Because I read that, some of your friends also helped you with
Sure.
the house, with your apartment and stuff like that. How did you figure that out? Say, for example, if I have nobody, like I know nobody, what do I do? What is the kind of financial guarantee I need to move to a new country?
Yeah, I mean, it's, so specific depending on the different countries. For us, it wasn't as foreign coming, from Canada to the US, but it was definitely, living in New York is not a cheap city, and it was a huge financial undertaking for us to come there. And, we really had to scale back our lives and our, style of living and our lifestyle for many years. And not only, we lived in a tiny 6-floor walk-up apartment that was, what we could afford at the time. Unfortunately, we had, we were at 0 credit coming in. No one would give us any lease. We were very lucky. Our parents are amazing and helped us out to kind of pursue that dream. We put all of our savings into Maman. We were very thrifty in opening it. We had, our parents were there, as I mentioned, painting, sanding. It was friends, family. It was a huge labor of love. We saved on a lot of contracting costs.
Love
Uh,
it. Yeah.
Having painting parties and ordering pizza and saying, "Hey guys, today we're going to sand down some brick walls." But I think it was being, smart. It was being thrifty. It was being resourceful in terms of the opening, and then also lowering our standards and knowing that, we're not going out for fancy dinners all the time, and we're not living the high New York lifestyle. And especially as we decided to grow, we didn't pay ourselves for years. We kept reinvesting we were living on, bare minimum, and reinvesting the money that we made from the company back into the business, because we did see future and we saw so much growth. So it's definitely a huge, financial undertaking. And we were fortunate that we had friends and family who we kind of raised money with in the first round to help us out as we developed before we went to the private equity round. But it was, I think coming into a new country, and especially being an entrepreneur, like the last thing you think about is making money, because, I think you have to be comfortable with the fact that that's not going to happen for a while. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs kind of, look at it and think that, they'll pay themselves and they'll have a quick return. And I think you got to go into it knowing that you're going to be broke for quite some time while you invest in this, and you have to be comfortable with that, and knowing that it's really important to be reinvesting into your business and into your company in order to grow it to actually have financial gain in the end.
Right. And in the middle of all this, how and when did you decide to start a family?
Good questions. Again, when there's never a perfect time, I'm like, it's funny because you're never like, I always, wanted kids. I knew for the first, I guess it was the first five years of the business, it wasn't the right time. It was, we were not there financially. Physically, I was, all in. Both of us were all in, invested in the business. But always something, in your mid-30s, it's in the back of your mind and the clock's ticking and you want to start a family. Never a great time. Never, I'm never rich enough, never young enough, never tired enough. I have the perfect setup, the perfect home. I'm like, you just got to do it, and you make the best of what it is. So we actually, I was fortunate. Our son was born right before COVID hit. So we were very lucky that, we had the baby, and at about 5-6 months, once COVID hit, when, is such a great time to be at home and stay with your child. We had our restaurants shut down. It was very quiet. We were both, not working in the stores at the time. And that's actually when we decided to write our cookbook. So we kind of took the opportunity to expand, the business from a brand standpoint, of, being at home and being stuck at home. We're like, why don't we, put our efforts and our creative minds to use and write our cookbook. So that kind of, kept us going. We did a lot of cooking, a lot of recipe testing throughout the way as well.
So while your husband is your co-founder and you are obviously at home together, how do you like, when do you discuss business? How do you come up with business ideas together? Like, is it while preaching or like while doing utensils? I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's kind of, it's kind of a nice thing about our relationship. Even this morning over breakfast, we were looking at like new menus and bouncing ideas off one another. And I think it's just really become such an integral, like, part of our lives, even with our children, that, I think that's one of the advantages with working with each other, is that it's so nice that we can, we just always have that kind of fluid conversation. It's never turning work off or coming to the dinner table saying, how was your day? Or how was your day? Or what did you do today? So it's been lovely. Oh, we have a little special visitor who wants to say hi.
Hi.
Hi. We're just talking about family and Mama.
Yeah.
The joys of working from home as well. That's the other thing.
Absolutely.
Children who like to pop in, and I'm like, we're all part of it.
Absolutely. And how do you want to raise your kids?
How do I want to raise my kids? Not to interrupt me during meetings. To be well behaved when Mama says I have a call, and to stay out of my room is how I want to raise my kids. I'm clearly failing at that. We want to raise them with the same kind of entrepreneurial values that we have. Our kids love to be in the kitchen. I think not only entrepreneurial values, but family values, just like what we had. We were always often together in the kitchen. My son, Eve, who's here with me, he loves to cook. We started a whole online series. He's 4. We started an online series of him doing all of the recipes throughout the cookbook. So he's cooked all of the recipes that we've videoed. So really kind of, keeping those values of togetherness, being around the table. It's something that's very important in our household with all of our meals. And for me, I really instill a lot of creativity in him. That was something that my parents very much supported. Both of them being, my mom was a stay-at-home mom. My father was an entrepreneur. And I want to, not give them the path that some parents do, forcing them to be doctors or be lawyers and forcing them to be, very academic. I want him to be able to try as many things as possible and really, see what speaks to him and be open to what he wants to do.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Elisa. I had a wonderful time talking to you and just getting to know you. Thank you so much.
Sorry, yeah, we're ending as the chaos begins. So good timing.
Great, thank you.
The dogs barking, the kids. It's, life of an entrepreneur working from home today.
Well, good luck with all your openings in Miami.
Well, thank you so much. It was such a pleasure to talk to you as well.
Thank you. Bye.